Paint the Town Green started as a decorating company specialising in using environmentally friendly paint. We never intended, it was just me, I never intended to have our own paint range. It was sort of born out of what was available at that time. This is in 2007, so it's 11 years ago. There wasn't really an environmentally friendly paint range available that had the depth of colour, the variety of colour, and the sort of contemporary colour range that my clients I felt deserved and should have. I didn't want there to be any compromise. So I thought, well, I'll just come up with my own range. And that's what I said about doing. An incredibly daunting task for someone who's never done something like that before, mainly because the possibilities are absolutely infinite. Colour is a bit like, colours are a little bit like numbers. So you get a number, say 420,611. It's made up of a 4, a 2, a 0 or whatever, and you put those numbers together and you get that big number. Colour is very much the same in that it is made up of lots of smaller numbers. So every colour that you see on a colour chart is made up of a combination of pigments, a certain amounts, certain quantities, and certain. And when you get those combinations, the world is your oyster. So trying to decide where to start with a colour chart is a daunting prospect. The angle that I came at it from was just, after 15 years experience as a decorator, I just thought I'm going to start with what people like and what I know people choose and what they go for. But also absorbing feedback. So I quite like such and such colour by so and so, but I wish it was a little blue or a little bit green, or it didn't have that, or I find in certain lights. So that was my sort of starting point, to know what people use, because despite the infinite range that's there with different brands, different different what have you, there was actually quite a small corridor what actually was chosen. So I felt that actually sort of less was more, to give people sort of come up with a chart which was what people actually wanted and used. I sort of married that with a sort of a theory that I wanted to have a sort of reasonably full spectrum. So I was looking at a sort of Caran d'Ache box of crayons and try and have sort of all colours represented. And this is what I came up with. This is our first job. Very few of you would have seen it. This was our first
antique.
Antique. It's like an absolute fortune. It's only about 50 of them there. But this was our original chart, which I came up with, and actually it was a it was a very, very small company, and we still are a pretty small company, but it was very small started. And these are the way that we actually made this. I say we, it was me. These are all stickers that were hand painted. So I got not individually. I do it by the sheet. I'll be too easy. But I got this. So I get the chart printed. So this chart came from the printer with nothing on, just boxes basically. And I found this sticker supplier that did the right size stickers. So I do in our spare bedroom. I would just be painting sheets and sheets of the colours, and then, and this is true, peeling each one off and sticking them on the chart, because to mass produce them costs thousands and thousands of pounds.
And your wife thought you were going nuts.
She thought I was going mad. This was taking over it. But it was a self-funded thing. So I didn't have thousands and thousands of pounds to throw at it. So that was the original chart. These are genuinely hand-painted colours, and that was what accompanied our decorating service at the beginning. There then came the challenge of naming the colours, and some of you may be aware and familiar with our brand. It was a decision that I made due to a sort of previous career as a musician. I decided to name all our colours after song titles, partly because I wanted to avoid the slightly pretentious, it's sort of toe-curling colour names that some people come up with. There's a brilliant sketch. It's on, if you ever get a chance, a rainy Sunday on YouTube. They call themselves, and no disrespect to any other paint brands at all, but they call themselves Barrow and Fall, I think. It's absolutely hilarious, and it's these two incredibly earnest women discussing what to call these colours. But it encapsulates what I was trying to avoid with naming the colours. So I thought if I gave it that filter, they have to be after sometimes. But actually, I found it a really interesting thing, and it took ages to come up with the names, because trying to match the name with the colour, and it was sort of half about sort of matching the sort of music and the song, but also matching it to the colour, because it's all quite sort of evocative, and the whole thing of sound and sight and colour and things, and it was just quite an interesting thing. Yeah. And I'm still slightly fascinated by the sort of correlation between the colour and the name and what that conjures up. And I do sometimes wonder, it's an experiment I probably never actually get around to doing, but I do sometimes wonder if the more popular colours from our chart, if I change the name of them, if they'd still be popular. Or if people sometimes connect just with the name, what it is in the mind. Yes, obviously there's the aspect of colour, but that reassurance, that familiarity through the name of something. So it's an interesting thing, but I spent weeks and weeks coming up with the colours for them.
We
the
hired
names
them.
for the colours.
We hired them.
Yeah, exactly. But it's some of them I found it, some of them are more obvious. There's things like it's a grey seal, it's a grey, and there's what other ones are there? So yeah, exactly. So private universe, it doesn't actually really, but it kind of it's sort of evocative of some sort of idea, and I tried to match the colour with that. So it was a really kind of interesting process, which hopefully works and people kind of can sort of connect with. So yeah, that was the original Paint the Town green chart. It had 65 colours, and it also had we were because of the fact that our paint has no toxic fumes or paint smell. I was very conscious of targeting certain markets, and one of them was sort of newborns, nurseries, and it's perfect for nurseries. So we actually had a section, this final column here was called Nursery Rhymes. And these were all kind of, we had Little Jack Horner, bananas in pyjamas, it's the yellow. So that was kind of idea behind that. So there's quite a lot of thought went into it to try and give it an element of charm, but also something a little bit different, unpretentious, just kind of inaccessible. That's what we're trying to do. Then when we opened the showroom, we decided it was still just me, decided just to scale down even more, because this idea I'd had of this sort of, replicating this sort of Karen Dash style, a little bit of everything, reds, oranges, pinks. There were areas of this chart that just weren't getting picked. I loved the colours, I thought they were great colours, but there's loving a colour and then actually being happy having it on your wall is not always the same thing. I love that colour. Are you going to paint your ceiling colour? No chance. So a whole load of columns just got crossed off. The ones your right, my left sort of disappeared. These were great colours. There's one here called Mummikin that I love, but no one ever picked it. This is sort of terracotta. It's going to run. So I trimmed it down again. I just thought I'm going to let go of this concept of having something from all the colour spectrums, because ultimately people don't really paint their houses in something with all the colour spectrums. So we reduced it down. We went from 65 to 36, down to, can I just hold this one? Yeah. Down to a more sort of more refined range. So this is, to my mind, it's a concentrated collection of colours that people are likely to use and like and love and want to use again. And that was the theory behind it. For orange lovers, I'm sorry. For yellow lovers, I'm sorry. But they just weren't getting picked. So even though they were cool colours, they weren't cool colours that people wanted to have on their walls. So that was why I got condensed even more. Some people find it frustrating. Some of the feedback is, oh, there's not a big enough range, and I get that. It's a kind of horses for courses thing. Other people say, oh, thank God, I'm fed up with this. It's like, where do I start? That's another 3 evenings wasted trying to narrow it down. So
painting stickers in your basement.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the idea. It's kind of I've done the culling, 25 years of working as a decorator, listening to feedback, working with interior designers, knowing what it is that's 95% of the time gets chosen, and that's kind of what I personally have come up with, and what I think is a good comprehensive range. I've just done my whole house using exclusively these colours, and my wife seems happy. So that's the main thing. So that's the sort of history of the Paint the Town green colour chart, basically.